Welcome to The Leap with Japa, the podcast that bridges continents and connects stories. Join us as we dive into the vibrant world of international education, explore diverse cultures, and share the extraordinary journeys of students far from home. Whether you're dreaming of studying abroad or already embarking on this adventure through other means, Leap with Japa is your companion in navigating the exciting, challenging, and transformative world of global education. Let's leap into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to today's episode, where we'll be diving into a crucial topic for many international students in the US. The OPT, the optional practical training, and the EAD card, which is the Employment Authorization Document. Understanding this can be a game changer for your career path in the US, so let's get started. The OPT is a period during which undergraduate and graduate students with F1 student status and who have completed or have been pursuing their degrees for more than 9 months are permitted by the US to work in the US for up to 12 months on a student visa. And the essence of this is so you can get practical training which complements their field of study. So for students in the STEM field, they can extend this by another 24 months, and that is known as the STEM OPT extension. So, what is the purpose of OPT? The main goal of OPT is to provide an opportunity to gain practical experience in your field of study. So whether you're an engineer, a graphic designer, a finance major, OPT allows you to apply what you've learned in the classroom to a professional setting, which enhances your education and your resume. So it kind of gives you some experience, so to speak. Now, what is the EAD? The EAD is essentially your ticket to legally work in the US. So it's a document. It's essentially a card that is issued by USCIS that proves you are allowed to work in the US for a specified period of time. For those on OPT, the EAD cards specify the start and end dates of your employment authorization. So, how do you get your EAD? To work under OPT, you must apply for the EAD. You cannot start working until you have this card, even if you find a job related to your field of study. The application process involves filling out USCIS Form I-765, you pay the fees, and you submit the necessary documentation, including your proof of your student status and your degree. We'll get to that in the next field, just give you an overview. So understanding the intricate details of the OPT and the EAD is foundational for taking advantage of your rights and opportunities as an international student. So today's episode will continue to explore how you can navigate this process effectively, starting out with setting your start date with your employer in the next segment. So here we go. Now, the OPT process can be, very daunting, but you have to prepare properly. You have to work closely with your designated school official. The rule is that you can submit your application up to 90 days before you complete your degree, but no later than 60 days after you graduate. So if you know you're going to graduate in a summer, you can apply 90 days before that period so that you can take advantage, because there's a processing time delay typically. And after you graduate, you have to apply within 60 days of your graduation, so you don't fall out of status. And you do this to avoid any gaps between your graduation and your start date of your employment due to processing delays. So what do you need to apply for your OPT? So you need your 765. This is the application form, the application itself. Make sure every section is completed accurately to avoid delays or denials. Next, you need your official transcripts and diploma. This proves that you're eligible for OPT and that you've either completed your studies or you're close to doing so. So you can get your full transcript or you can get your diploma. Then you need passport photographs. You would need 2 recent passport style photographs to go with that. You need a copy of your passport ID page. This should include your data page, include your photo and personal details. Then you need a copy of your most recent I-94 record. This shows your most recent entry into the US. They want to make sure that you've kept status. So you have an entry and exit record. So they know that's exit if you've traveled since you became a student. They want to know that, you're keeping your I-94. Then you need a check you need a check or a money order for the application fee. Please check on the USCIS website. The prices do change, but do check, as given a value on this episode might change the next time someone listens to it. So make sure you double check what the current cost of application is. So once you've gathered all the required document, you will send your application packet to USCIS. Make sure you keep copies of everything you submit for your records. After submitting, you can track your application status online through the USCIS website. So, some common mistakes to avoid. Please remember the deadlines. Remember, 90 days before you graduate and 60 days post-completion. Double check your form, your 765. Double check for things like signature. One thing I would say is please do not digitally sign your forms. Sign it with a black ink. I have seen cases where people signed digitally, but it was rejected by USCIS, and that's an automatic denial. It doesn't mean you cannot apply again. It just means that you just missed a window of getting everything right. So make sure you double check for any other errors or omissions. Fill all the sections properly. Go over it as many times as you can. Incorrect fee. That's why I didn't mention a particular amount on this episode, because the value that I mentioned could change in 2 years. So please make sure you go on the website to double check how much it costs for the EAD OPT 765 forms. Now, some tips for you. Make sure you speak to your international student office. Your DSO is your best point of call. They can offer valuable guidance and even review the application materials. And I think you should give it to them for them to review. Stay informed of any changes in immigration policies. So these things are very fluid. Regulations can change. Staying up to date helps ensure you meet all the current requirements. These requirements are very fluid. They can change. Also plan for delays. Processing times can vary, so it's wise to plan for potential delays by applying as early as you can. So, in conclusion, for these little things we've talked about, getting your OPT is an exciting step towards your career in the US. By following these guidelines and preparing thoroughly, you would enhance your chances of a smooth transition from student to working professional. Now, let's discuss how you set up your start date with your employer once you have your EAD in hand. So, this episode is assuming that you finished all your degree programs. The last episode that I had of this podcast, I talked about the best time to graduate. So we've just graduated. So now you want to set your start date with your employer. So to do that, you need to have received your OPT EAD card. So once you've received your OPT card, the next step is to coordinate your start date with your employer. This is a critical step as it ensures that you begin your employment legally and on the right foot. Now let's discuss effectively how to do this. Your EAD card will have a start date and an end date. Make a mental note of that. It is crucial that you do not begin working before the start date on the card. If your employer proposes a start date that is before your EAD card, you will need to negotiate a later start date, or you will possibly risk your visa conditions. But most companies know this. So typically what happens is if you're working for a big company, the immigration officers will reach out to you and they will ask for the details of your EAD card. And then once they verify the start and end date, they would then authorize you to set a start date for your employment with your manager. So typically, what you need to do, you have to be very transparent with the communication with your employer. So first, be transparent, be upfront with your employer about your OPT status and restrictions. This includes your available start date as per the EAD. So you have to, this is for companies that probably don't know the rules. If it's an employer that has never employed an OPT student, you have to be transparent and let them understand that, if you're still waiting for the card, you're still waiting for the card, and they can adjust your start dates accordingly. Next, provide your employer with a copy of your EAD card once you receive it. This will serve as your proof of your work authorization in the US. And, like I said, if there's any delays in receiving your EAD card, keep them informed and they can adjust the start date accordingly. Now, you've explained if your preferred date doesn't start, or doesn't align with the EAD card, you can negotiate with them. So you have to explain the legal requirements. Then you can also suggest remote preparation. Things like, what do I need to start learning about the job? So you haven't started the job, but you want to do things like, is there any kind of training or any kind of reading that you want them to that they want to do, and things like that. So just be aware of that. You can always ask that, but most companies understand this process enough that they would typically just wait for that EAD to come. So setting your start date with employers about balancing legal compliance with your career aspirations, and by maintaining open lines of communication and being transparent about your OPT restrictions, you can set a realistic expectation and start your professional journey in the US on the right note. And then the next phase of this is after you get the EAD card, what happens? So once they set up your start date and you've finalized everything, the next thing to do is to do what they call the I-9 verification process. And now, most people that I know do an I-9 verification. So the I-9 verification is used by employers to verify the identity and employment authorization of individuals hired for employment in the US. So the purpose is to document that each new employee, both citizens and non-citizens that were hired after 1986, November 6th of 1986, is authorized to work in the US. So it's a law. So what happens is that there's a section that you would fill, which is the employee information attestation. You fill that section, the employee on or before the first day of your employment, you will need to provide your full legal name, date of birth, social security number, and also your immigration status. So essentially, you're going to be mentioning that, hey, I'm an alien authorized to work until so and so date. Ensure that the information matches exactly documents you will present for verification. So you would need to write that section. The next section is that you have to do an employer review. You would go into the day, your first day of work, typically your first day, and then you would present these documents, your EAD card, your I-94, and your passport that has your identification and your visa to the employer, and your employer physically, not photocopies, physically have to view those documents, which proves that you're allowed to work. Once that is done, your I-9 is passed and you are authorized to work fully. Remember, you must have all these documents in physical form, not printed, not photocopied. Once you do that, you have to make a mental note that your I-9, the end of your I-9 the end of your OPT card coincides with the end of the last day of your work. So there's always a re-verification process if you have to keep doing it. So you have to consistently go back and do your I-9 verification every single time. So typically the first EAD card is for the first 12 months. When the 12 months are over, you'd have to get the STEM OPT, which is a 24-month extension. This is if you are in a STEM program, and then they have to do the I-9 all over again. If you change jobs in between this 12 months and you go to another place, you have to do I-9 in that new office. So that's how it works. You have to consistently, keep it updated. So the I-9 verification is straightforward, but requires attention to detail. You have to be able to, essentially keep up with the immigration rules. So, in conclusion, the I-9 verification is straightforward, but requires attention to detail. As an international student on OPT, ensuring that you have the correct documentation for your employer goes a long way in helping you. So, make sure you are able to keep, not able, but make sure you have a copy of all your documents so that you do not fall out of status, because it's quite vital that you do that. Okay, so what's the next thing? You started work, you have to find a place to live. So I've talked about looking for a place to live as an international student when you're coming as a grad student, so you can refer to that episode. But this is for full-time work. So as an international student transitioning to work in the US, finding suitable accommodation can be a significant challenge. So you have to understand things like leases and things like that. Different parts of the year, different times of the year have different price points. I'll give an example. If you're looking for accommodation in the summer, when people are trying to move to an area that is very popular, like say in California during the summer, the leases are expensive. Best time to get a lease is probably in January. No one is looking for homes at this time. So, but in this case, if you graduated in spring and you were starting work in May or June, accommodation might be sort of a problem. So, what are the things you need to know? Choose a location that balances commute time to your workplace, safety, and access to amenities like groceries, healthcare, and public transport. So, look for a place that you can easily drive from. Don't pick a place an hour away. Be aware of the times you have to be in the office. Have a budget. So, if you are single, would a 1-bedroom be enough, or do you share a 2-bedroom apartment with someone? That's a consideration. Determine your budget, consider your expenses, not just rent. Remember to account for utilities, internet, and possibly rentals insurance. Very vital. Rental insurance means that if anything happens to your stuff in your house, you are covered. So that's one advantage. So how do you search for housing? You can use online platforms like Zillow, Rent.com, Apartments.com. Can be useful starting points. University forums or community boards can also offer rental listings suited to students and young professionals, so you can look in universities in those areas. One advantage, one thing I would mention is if you have friends in that area, let them go around for you. So for me, I was able to get a friend. I had done an internship in San Jose, and I was able to get my friend, Jeremy, who drove around different apartment complexes and chose one for me and said, you should take this because I had a young family. So that's one option. Look for people that will be willing to go around. Considerations when signing a lease: be aware of the length of the lease, the security deposit requirements, and also the policies on breaking the lease early. So if you probably move to the place and you don't like it and you want to break the lease, typically leases are between either 6 months or 12 months or longer. Before signing anything, inspect the property for any existing damages and ensure they're documented. Take pictures of the place before you move in. Do not be naive and just assume that everything is fine. There might be broken pipes, paints, stains, bad carpets, bad appliances. Making mental note of that. Familiarize yourself with tenant rights in your state or city so they don't treat you unfairly. Be aware of how much rent goes up every year so you know how to manage that. So that's one thing. So start early. begin your search very early in advance so you don't rush. So when you apply for your EAD card and you set your start, before you set your start date, reach out to all the accommodations in that area. Tell them you're coming in 3 months. Find out, because usually what happens is rental places try to plan ahead. They want to know when people are moving in or moving out. So if you give them enough lead time, they might be able to find something for you before your EAD card comes. So start early. Be thorough. Visit multiple properties. In this case, if you cannot go, try and find someone that can go on your behalf, someone that can go to the area, take a look at the area, read on forums to find out what people think about the area. Also get your documentations, employment letter, to let them know how, because sometimes they want to know if you're able to pay the rent. So showing them an employment letter goes a long way to be able to show and give that kind of proof. So finding the right accommodation is crucial, as it will be your home away from home. So with the right approach and resources, you can find a place that not only fits your budget, but also supports your new lifestyle in the US. So, in conclusion, I'd like to thank you very much for listening to today's episode on applying for your OPT. And I've covered everything from understanding applying for the OPT, setting your start date, navigating your I-9 verification process, and finding accommodation. I hope this has been informative and provided you with the tools you need to succeed. Remember, while this process may be daunting, being prepared and informed can make all the difference. Don't hesitate to reach out to your University International Student Office or legal advisors if you need further assistance. Well, I wish you luck on this. Now that you have picked a job on this exciting phase of your career in the US, stay tuned for more helpful episodes that aim to support your success as an international student and beyond. In addition to that, I would like to say thank you for everyone that has been watching our interview series on YouTube. It's been growing substantially. So there will be 2 tracks. There's going to be the audio for the podcast, and then the video episodes would be the interviews that I have with people. I have great interviews lined up for the rest of the year, and I hope that you join me in, enjoying this process and this journey. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Leap with Jackma. I hope it brought you valuable insights and stories that resonate with your journey. If you have any thoughts to share, questions, or want to send a voice note with your feedback, please visit our website at leapwithjackma.io. You will find a contact from there. I would love to hear from you and feature your voice in a future episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform, some of which are Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Player FM. Your subscriptions and reviews help us grow and reach more listeners, and I truly appreciate each one of them. Also, check out our merch store on leapwithjackma.io website for some cool t-shirts and hoodies, perfect for showing your support for the show. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll dive even deeper into the experiences and challenges of international education and careers. Until then, keep leaping forward, and thanks again for being part of the Leap with Jackma community.